Hello, namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. The Israeli city of Haifa is under attack. It suffered its worst attack yet. This city is home to Israeli military assets. Hezbollah is targeting it. Hamas too is firing rockets. And Iran says it is ready for war. Meanwhile, Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar may be alive. We'll tell you about this man, the mystery behind his status, and why he's a critical target for Netanyahu. In India, assembly election results are out. It's a hat-trick for the BJP in Haryana, defying poll predictions, and Omar Abdullah is set to be Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir again. In Pakistan, things are so bad that the Taliban is worried about regional stability on their account, and that is saying something. Does China have a secret naval base in Cambodia? What are North Korean soldiers doing in Ukraine? Why has Samsung said sorry to its investors? Why is Nike losing the sneaker wars? Is Google's monopoly ending? What's the new verdict on its Play Store? And how do you differentiate between art and trash? Sometimes even art museums cannot tell, and artworks end up in the dustbin. We'll tell you more about it. The headlines first. Hong Kong stock market suffers its worst day in 16 years. Stocks plunged more than 9%. Oil prices also sink more than 2%. It's a strong rally thanks to China's economic stimulus fades. Shares in European luxury and liquor companies were sharply lower as well. The European Union is set to challenge China at the World Trade Organization, accuses Beijing of imposing anti-dumping measures on brandy imported from the bloc. It is being seen as a tit-for-tat move by China after Brussels slapped hefty additional import tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. A Chinese Navy ship docks in Sri Lanka, this despite a ban by Colombo on foreign research vessels. Sri Lanka's new government says permission was given to the ship because it is, and I'm quoting, a training vessel and not a research craft. In the past, India has raised objections over these port calls by China. Kenya's parliament votes to impeach its deputy president. He is accused of corruption and undermining the president by supporting the anti-government protests. But William Ruto's deputy denies the accusations. Since June, political tensions have been high in this East African country. And Geoffrey Hinton and John Hopfield win the Nobel Prize in Physics. They were awarded for their pioneering work in artificial intelligence. Their research on neural networks in the 1980s paved the way for this technology. Hinton is known as the godfather of AI. Last year, he warned about the risks posed by AI to society and humanity. Israel's war in Lebanon is getting more complicated. Hezbollah is intensifying its attacks and firing more rockets towards Israel. Today, Haifa was targeted once again. Hezbollah launched a major strike. It fired more than 100 rockets at Haifa and nearby areas. It lasted for about 30 minutes, meaning Hezbollah fired over 100 rockets in half an hour. And this is quite significant. Haifa is Israel's third largest city. It is also a port city. It is critical to Israel's military establishment. It is home to military bases and key weapons manufacturing facilities. Yesterday, Haifa was struck for the first time in nearly 20 years. Hezbollah considers it a high-value target, so it is doubling down. In today's strike, at least 7 locals were injured. Hezbollah has also issued a fresh threat.
هذا الاجتماع This big consensus by the Israeli enemy, along with the US and Western countries, they are all trying to pressure us in order to be fearful and to be afraid. But we will not be afraid. We will not be fearful. I would like to reassure you. Our capabilities are fine, and what the enemy said about our capabilities being affected is a delusion.
That was Sheikh Naim Qasim, the deputy chief of Hezbollah. He said that despite the recent attacks, their military capabilities are intact. So how is Israel responding to all of this? It is expanding the battlefield in Lebanon. The IDF, or the Israeli Defense Force, is deploying more troops, targeting more villages in Lebanon. Today, more soldiers were sent to the Lebanon front. The 146th Reserve Division of the Israeli Defense Force, it has joined the fight in Lebanon. So Israel now has as many as 4 divisions deployed there on the border with Lebanon. 4 divisions. How many soldiers is that? Israel has not officially released a number, but most estimates say it's more than 15,000 troops. 15,000 Israeli soldiers clashing with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And they're getting aerial support. The IDF is carrying out multiple airstrikes. Israel says it is making progress. It claims to have taken over a Hezbollah base in southern Lebanon. Israel says that this was used by Hezbollah as a combat compound. But these gains are coming at a heavy cost. The casualty count is mounting. At least 11 Israeli soldiers have died during this operation. But there's nothing to suggest that Benjamin Netanyahu will slow down. On the contrary, he's ramping it up. He's intensifying the IDF operations in Gaza as well. There were fresh airstrikes today. At least 25 Palestinians were killed. And just like Hezbollah, Hamas is firing back. An Israeli soldier was killed in northwest Gaza today. The Qasim brigades claimed responsibility for this one. This is the armed wing of Hamas, the Qasim brigades. Israel is yet to respond to this claim. Meanwhile, the warnings from Iran are also getting louder.
The Islamic Republic of Iran does not want to increase tension and war. Although we are not afraid of war, we are fully prepared. If they want to test our will, as I said, they can. We are ready for any scenario, any situation. Our armed forces are fully and 100% ready, and they have identified all the necessary targets.
That was the Iranian foreign minister. He says Tehran is fully prepared for war. Remember, Israel has been talking about an attack, a retaliation for last week's missile strikes from Iran. But it's not clear when Netanyahu will strike and where he will strike. The Israeli defense minister is traveling to Washington to hold talks with the US leadership, possibly to discuss Israel's retaliatory options. And apparently the US is advising them to avoid attacks on Iran's nuclear or energy sites. Instead, they're pushing Israel to strike the Iranian military. It appears Israel has not yet narrowed down on a plan, and frankly, there are no good options here. Whichever path Israel chooses, Iran is bound to retaliate. What remains to be seen is how far each side is prepared to go. It's the greatest mystery of this war. Some 66% of Gaza's buildings have been destroyed. Some 42,000 people are dead, but Yahya Sinwar lives. And nobody knows how. Sinwar took over as the Hamas chief in July this year. Before that, he was their military head in Gaza, and he is the one who plotted the October 7th attack. Since then, Israel has been hunting Sinwar in Gaza. They have bombed Hamas tunnels, raided his hideouts, and eliminated his deputies. Then last month, Yahya Sinwar went silent. Israel had struck a school in Gaza on the 21st of September. They said it was housing a Hamas command center. And after that strike, Sinwar went silent. No radio contacts, no reports of meetings, no couriers. Not even after Israel killed the Hezbollah chief. So Israel began investigating the strike. They wanted to know if Yahya Sinwar had been killed in that attack. We don't know the probe result, but some reports said that he was presumed dead by Israel. Now it turns out that he isn't, or so it appears. On Sunday, Israeli officials said that Sinwar was active again, that he made contact with Qatar. Now, Qatar, as you would know, is a mediator in this war. They've also been hosting a number of Hamas leaders, so the logic checks out. Sinwar has been communicating with and via the Qataris. But this time, Doha has not confirmed it. They say no direct contact was made. The truth is we cannot be sure because Sinwar has been a slippery customer. Israel has come close to eliminating him multiple times, but each time he escaped. Sometimes by surrounding himself with hostages, basically human shields. It's a ruthless but surprising feat. Just think about it. Israel managed to kill Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. They managed to kill Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut, but they have not been able to take out Yahya Sinwar, that too in territory that they, the Israelis, occupy. So what's the secret here? Well, the tunnels are a major reason. Hamas has basically built an underground city in Gaza, a tunnel network that is 500 kilometers long. It's like a maze down there. Very hard to track down and raid. And Sinwar has used it to his advantage. In February, Israel's military released this video. It is said to show Sinwar fleeing through a tunnel. The second tactic is communication. Sinwar is largely off the grid. He does not use mobile phones, he does not use pagers. He is relying on ancient methods like handwritten notes and human couriers. Even for mediation, that is his strategy. He sends a message via human couriers. The couriers pass it over different levels, and finally it reaches someone with a phone, maybe a Hamas operative or maybe an Arab mediator in Gaza. That is how Yahya Sinwar has been communicating. And this is a problem for Israel. Their expensive and extensive espionage network is based on technology. No technology, no tracking. In fact, some reports say that Israel is poking Sinwar. They're purposely putting a question mark on his status in the hope that he will react. Maybe release a statement to say that he is alive, and then he can be tracked. Again, we cannot confirm these reports, but it certainly sounds like something Israel will do. Having said all of this, one question still remains. What is Sinwar's role in this war? How will his death or his capture affect this war? Well, Sinwar is the Hamas chief. He also leads their fighters in Gaza, so he is the final voice on a ceasefire, much like Benjamin Netanyahu is the final voice in Israel. It's Yahya Sinwar in Gaza. Without his agreement, there can be no deal. So that's the first thing, a ceasefire. Secondly, killing Sinwar would be a strategic win for Israel. Yes, there is a revenge angle to it, but it's also strategic. Sinwar represents a radical Hamas faction, a faction that is willing to launch terror attacks like October 7th. Plus, he's among the few leaders left. A number of Hamas commanders have already been killed, like Mohammed Deif, an October 7th plotter, Marwan Issa, a Hamas deputy commander, Saleh al-Aruri, a military commander, and Ibrahim Biari, commander of Hamas's Central Battalion. It goes without saying that every group needs leaders and Hamas is running out of them. Which is why Yahya Sinwar's role is so important. He is one of the few decision makers left. If Israel can take him out, they can claim a big victory, perhaps even wind down the operations in Gaza. Until then, this manhunt will continue. Let's turn to India now. The top headline is election results. These were regional elections for legislative assemblies, one from Jammu and Kashmir and the other from Haryana. And what's the verdict? In sporting terms, it is 1-all. The Congress and the National Conference have won in Jammu and Kashmir, and the BJP has won in Haryana. It's their third victory in a row. And within this scoreline, there are many stories. So let's take a closer look. This was Kashmir's first election since 2014, also the first since Article 370 was removed, the article that gave Jammu and Kashmir special powers. It was scrapped in 2019. So the election campaign this time was framed around that issue. The BJP said it was a masterstroke, scrapping Article 370. The opposition called it a betrayal. Let's look at the numbers now. The National Conference has won 42 seats. That's the party of Omar and Farooq Abdullah. They were allied with the Congress Party and the Communist Party. The Congress won 6 seats. The Communists got 1 seat. So put together, this bloc, this opposition bloc, has got 49 seats. Now, to put that in context, the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly has 90 seats. The majority mark is 46. They've got 49. It should be smooth sailing for the NC and the Congress. Omar Abdullah is expected to be Chief Minister again. And what about the BJP? Well, they have won 29 seats, all of them in the Jammu region. But we'll come to that later. You see, this victory is a very consequential one. Just look at the NC manifesto. They have promised to work towards the restoration of Article 370, basically to restore special powers to the state. They also want to modify or cancel laws that were passed after 2019. Of course, 370 is the centre's domain. The state government plays no role or no part in it. But it does set the stage for an interesting period ahead, possibly one of friction. Nonetheless, let's look at the big takeaways. First of all, democracy has returned. We did not see any violence during this election. No one's complaining about the results. And that's what ultimately matters. Peaceful and fair elections. That's a big, big win. Secondly, the hardline elements have flopped. Dozens of separatists had joined the poll fray as independents, including allies of separatist leader Engineer Rashid. He's in jail for a terror financing case. But he was granted bail to campaign. Even the Jamaat-e-Islami had fielded candidates in this election. They were all expected to make an impact, maybe cut into the vote bank of the National Conference, but clearly they did not. Only 7 independents managed to win this time. And the third big takeaway, Jammu and Kashmir is a story of 2 regions, the Kashmir Valley and Jammu. Just look at this map. All of the BJP's wins are in the Jammu region, which is largely Hindu-dominated. All of National Conference's wins are in Kashmir, which is Muslim-dominated. And this was the case in 2014 as well. The BJP swept Jammu and the PDP, or the People's Democratic Party, swept Kashmir. This time the PDP is nowhere. They've been reduced to just 3 seats. Even party chief Mehbooba Mufti's daughter Iltija lost her seat. It looks like their voters shifted to the National Conference. Still, the NC is asking the PDP to join their coalition, sort of like a show of unity. And that is the story from Kashmir. The Abdullahs are back in power. They have traditionally had good relations with New Delhi, but this is post-370 Kashmir, so let's see how it goes. Which brings us to the second state, the state of Haryana. The day began with celebrations at the Congress headquarters. Early trends gave them 60 out of 90 seats. It looked like the Congress may oust the BJP in Haryana, that too after 10 years in power, 10 years of the BJP rule. But close to noon, the numbers changed. The BJP raced ahead of the Congress, and look at the final tally. The BJP has won 48 seats, which is a shade over the majority mark of 46. And the Congress has got 37 seats. It's a remarkable win for the Bharatiya Janata Party. A, because no one really gave them a chance. Most exit polls predicted a Congress win. And B, because it's a victory against anti-incumbency. Like I said, the BJP had been in power since 2014. No party had won 3 consecutive elections in Haryana before this. So the odds were against them. But the BJP managed to improve its tally, not only win, but improve the tally. They won 40 seats in the 2019 election, the last election. This time, they've got 48. Now, the Congress is not happy about the shift in numbers. They're talking about foul play by the Election Commission.
शिकायतें आ रही कि कैसे बैटरीज जो मशीन की थी वो 99% और जिन मशीनों की बैटरीज 99% थी उन मशीनों में नतीजा एक आया, हमें हराने वाला नतीजा आया, और जो मशीनें नहीं जिनको छेड़ा गया, जिनकी बैटरी 60-70% जो स्वाभाविक या होनी चाहिए थी, उसमें हम जीत रहे हैं हमारे कैंडिडेट।
Well, the complaints, I'm sure, will be investigated, but frankly, it's a losing battle. You cannot accept the system in Kashmir and question the same system in Haryana. It's a clear double standard. The Congress should rather introspect. They were set to be in pole position in the state of Haryana. So how did they mess it up? A lot of factors are being talked about, including infighting in their ranks. You see, there were 3 chief ministerial aspirants in the party, in the Congress party: Bhupinder Singh Hooda, Kumari Selja, and Randeep Surjewala. It's a situation that inevitably backfires. But let's also look at the bigger picture. What do the results in Haryana mean for Indian politics? Again, 3 things. 1, it's a speed bump for the opposition. They were flying high after the Lok Sabha elections, despite losing. There was talk of a Congress resurgence. A victory in Haryana may have added momentum to those conversations, but now questions will be asked. The Congress had a direct face-off with the BJP in Haryana. They had issues to capitalize on. And their leader, Rahul Gandhi himself, led massive marches and rallies. Yet they lost. Secondly, it's a big relief for the BJP. In the Lok Sabha, they suffered setbacks in northern India, in states like Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Himachal. But this result shows that it's not a free fall, that they can still turn it around. And finally, number 3, it sets the stage for elections in Maharashtra. That's the big one coming up. Maharashtra is the richest state in India. It's currently ruled by a BJP coalition. Let's see how that one unfolds. Now let's turn our attention to Pakistan. The country is a mess. This is a news, it's a fact. There's always one crisis or another that's unfolding in Pakistan. You have terror attacks in Karachi targeting Chinese nationals. There are crackdowns in Islamabad against political rallies. And then there are outright attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa against the Pashtuns. Anywhere you turn in Pakistan, you're greeted with discontent and violence. It is so bad that even the Taliban are concerned. You heard that right. Afghanistan's Taliban regime is worried about peace and stability in Pakistan. We're not making this up. They even issued a statement on Sunday. Here is what it said. I'm quoting the Taliban. The tensions between the government and political opposition supporters in Pakistan has reached an alarming level that could adversely impact the entire region. The best approach to address the legitimate demands of the people is via negotiations and understanding. This is the Taliban saying. The recent events have proven that rejecting negotiations further complicates matters. We are closely monitoring the situation in Pakistan and hope that the Pakistani government and influential institutions will deal reasonably and pragmatically with the growing discontent. That was the Taliban, asking Pakistan's government to get their house in order, asking them to negotiate with the people so that the chaos in Pakistan does not cause regional instability. Can you imagine how bad does a government need to be to draw criticism from the Taliban, to be put on the Taliban's watch list? Islamabad was not amused, of course. They issued a sharp rebuttal yesterday. Pakistan's foreign ministry called the remarks unacceptable interference and regrettable meddling. They added, and I'm quoting, "Instead of lecturing a democratic country, the Taliban government should focus on resolving its internal issues, prioritize inclusivity and meet the needs of its own people, including women's right to education, rather than restricting their rights with misleading interpretations of religion." The second part is definitely true, but calling Pakistan a democratic country seems a bit delusional. Think about what led to the Taliban's remarks. These were the scenes from the streets of Islamabad on Friday. Containers used as barricades, police firing tear gas, desperately trying to stop a protest. The protest was led by the PTI, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party. It's the party of former Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has been in jail for over a year now. Imran Khan has been locked up on a number of charges. The Pakistani government filed more than 150 cases against him. Not one of them has stuck. But whenever Imran Khan gets bail, a new case pops up. Some fresh ones were lodged this weekend because of the protests. The government accuses Imran Khan of fomenting violence, even as he sits behind bars. He's fomenting violence, they say. And today it was announced that visitors have been banned from seeing him. Pakistan really is quite the democracy. And it is amid this chaos that the Taliban issued their statement. It seems Kabul is wary of regional instability and security threats. And that's something a lot of nations should be, in fact, concerned about, especially considering the SCO summit next week. The SCO is the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's a Russia and China-led grouping with 10 members, including India and Pakistan. A summit of the SCO will be held in Islamabad on the 15th and 16th of October, and leaders from all the member nations are actually going. Why? Who knows? Perhaps it's been a while since their last near-death experience. Whatever the reason, all the SCO leaders will be there, and so will India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Duty calls apparently. Islamabad knows that it has to put on a good show. New loans and bailout packages may be riding on this summit. So Pakistan has effectively put Imran Khan in solitary confinement. It is banning groups like the PTM, an ethnic Pashtun movement. They want to hold a national Pashtun convention, but the police are literally setting their camps on fire. That is how bad the repression is in Pakistan. Islamabad is stamping out any hint of dissent because it wants everything to be perfect for the SCO. But yesterday's attack proved that with Pakistan, terror is always around the corner. When you hear the phrase overseas military base, what is it that comes to mind? Most of you would immediately think of the United States because America has hundreds of bases all over the world. In scorching deserts, on remote islands, even in unfriendly countries like Cuba. Over the years, the United States has built up a network of, listen to this, about 750 military bases, 750. So American soldiers can be found all over the world. But why do you think this is? Washington will say it is about protecting American interests. Other countries will say it is about power projection and the ability to strike fast, anywhere, anytime. Whatever your views, you have to agree that it is an effective strategy. Having bases everywhere is effective. So now other countries seem to be eyeing the same thing, especially America's chief rival of the century, China. China officially has just one overseas base, officially, in the African nation of Djibouti. The US has a base there too. So does the UK, France, Italy, Germany, and even Spain. Djibouti really isn't picky. Pretty much anyone can go there and set up camp. So China having a base there is not really a big deal. But what if it had another base, an exclusive one in an allied country at a strategic location? Well, China's rivals would be wary because such a base would be a threat. And this is precisely why there's so much speculation about a base in Cambodia. The Ream Naval Base. It is located in southern Cambodia on the Gulf of Thailand. It is officially owned and operated by the Cambodian Navy, but there have been doubts about that. The Ream base was initially a joint project between Cambodia and the US. The Americans were helping Cambodia develop the facility until 2017. But then Cambodia switched partners and decided to work with China instead. Beijing swooped in and started dismantling American buildings there. This was in the year 2020. And things moved fast after that. China set up new buildings by 2022, and by late last year, it had constructed a pier large enough to fit an aircraft carrier. Now that's a bit odd, right? Only 9 countries have aircraft carriers right now, and Cambodia is not one of them. So then why this giant pier? That was suspicious enough. But then satellite imagery revealed something even more disturbing. Since December last year, 2 ships have almost constantly been docked at the Ream Naval Base, 2 Chinese A-56 corvettes. These are small warships, mostly used for offshore patrols, not inherently very threatening. But why have they been loitering around a Cambodian base for almost a year? Because officially, it is still a Cambodian base. And that's what they keep saying anyway. Technically, Cambodia is prohibited from leasing out military bases to foreign countries. That's written in their constitution. But what happens if some ships decide to just squat there? as some sort of permanent guests. That sounds like a loophole, and one that China would be quite happy to exploit, because it would be exclusive. Unlike with Djibouti, there are no other bases there. So the Reem base would give China something no one else has. And the location has strategic value. It is located right next to Vietnam. Beijing has territorial disputes with Hanoi. The Reem base would allow China to encircle Vietnam, attack it from multiple directions, or at the very least, exert additional pressure. As I said earlier, Chinese bases will raise eyebrows. And rightfully so. Both Beijing and Phnom Penh keep denying that anything's going on. Last month, Cambodia commented on the two corvettes. It said China is planning to gift them to Cambodia once construction work at the base is completed. This month, Cambodia insisted that it would welcome the US Navy at the Reem base as long as it was for humanitarian purposes or for a joint drill. We say the US should take them up on that offer. Just to get a closer look, because by the looks of it, China is trying to expand its military presence. It might take them decades to catch up to the US, but they seem to have taken the first step. And that's bad news for all of China's neighbors and the Indo-Pacific as a whole. Now to the war in Ukraine. Last week, Ukrainian missiles struck Donetsk. The attack killed a few soldiers. But here's the catch. They weren't Russians. In fact, new reports suggest that they were North Korean soldiers. What were they doing in Ukraine? How did they end up in Donetsk? Well, it seems like it's the extension of a military pact that Moscow and Pyongyang signed in the month of June this year. They pledged to extend military ties. North Korean weapons are already being used in Ukraine by the Russians. And now it seems that Pyongyang soldiers have also joined Russia's war. But will it change anything? Our next report tells you.
It was Vladimir Putin's birthday yesterday. The Russian leader turned 72. And of course, messages poured in from across the globe. One such special message came from Kim Jong-un, the North Korean dictator. He called Putin his closest comrade, adding that relations between Moscow and Pyongyang would be raised to a new level. Do the deepening ties mean they would fight each other's wars? A new report suggests so. According to South Korea, North Korean soldiers are fighting alongside Russian troops in Ukraine. The revelation came from Seoul's defense minister. On October 3rd, Ukraine struck Donetsk. Seoul says the missile strike may have killed 6 North Korean officers. Ukrainian media has also reported the same. So the partnership is going to new levels, and that's been the case for a while now. In June, Putin landed in Pyongyang. It was his first visit to the country in 24 years, and he got the fanciest red carpet welcome. Last year, Kim traveled to a city in the Russian Far East, so the ties have been growing. And one of the reasons for that is the war in Ukraine. It's left Putin isolated. He's lost the West, he's lost support, he needs new allies. And what better option than North Korea? The Moscow-Pyongyang relationship goes back decades. It started in the 1950s with Kim's grandfather Kim Il-sung. In between, the two nations grew apart. But now things are back on track. And the two countries are signing deals to prove that point, including a mutual defense pact. The two nations promise to share military technology. More importantly, Putin says he may defend North Korea if attacked. That's a very big promise. North Korea is returning the favor too. Its weapons are already playing a big role in the Ukraine war. Growing evidence suggests that Russia has been deploying North Korean missiles in Ukraine, and now it looks like it's also using Pyongyang soldiers. Which brings us to the question, how far does this no-holds-barred friendship go? Well, there's nothing organic about this comradeship. It may look like these two are BFFs, but it's based on common enmity towards the US. However, there's also a lot to gain. For Putin, it's a new ally, a steady supplier of military weapons and now even soldiers, also a deterrent in the Pacific. For Kim Jong-un, Russia can help upgrade its military technology. It can also help in providing food and fuel. So both sides have a lot at stake here. For the West, this new partnership spells danger. Kim's weapons are already impacting Ukraine, and now his soldiers could tip the scales in Putin's favor in this war.
It is rare for multi-billion-dollar companies to apologize, especially when they're among the world's biggest conglomerates. The bigger they are, the harder it is for them to admit mistakes. But today, Samsung is saying sorry. The company, in fact, has issued a formal apology to its investors. Why? Because of its disappointing results, so much so that its executives are warning about a crisis. Samsung has reported its quarterly numbers. It made a profit of $6.8 billion, a profit, which should be good news. But according to experts, it isn't. They were expecting better numbers, and Samsung failed to deliver because of its semiconductor business. In fact, the head of Samsung's semiconductor division has said as much. He's admitted that they fell short. I have a statement from him. Listen to this. These are testing times, he says. We have caused concerns about our technical competitiveness, with some talking about the crisis facing Samsung. So what is this crisis facing Samsung? It's not being able to churn out enough chips. That is the problem. Samsung makes a special kind of chip. It is used to train AI models. Companies like NVIDIA depend on this chip. They use it in their AI products. Now, NVIDIA would like to buy more of these chips. It is, after all, the world's largest supplier of AI components, including processors, the kind that power popular AI models like ChatGPT. NVIDIA's processors are made using Samsung chips. So in an ideal scenario, Samsung would have benefited immensely from the AI boom. NVIDIA's products are in high demand the world over. The more processors they produce, the more money Samsung should be making. But that's not the case, because Samsung is not being able to provide enough chips, forcing NVIDIA to turn to a competitor, a company called SK Hynix. This company is filling the gap for NVIDIA, and Samsung has admitted to this. It has confessed that deliveries are running late on their part. And that's the first problem. Samsung is also falling behind TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation, TSMC. It's the world's largest chip maker. It competes with Samsung. Both these companies can make customized chips for clients. Samsung has the resources and the heft to challenge TSMC. But on this front too, it has fallen short. Its shareholders are unhappy with this. The stock has been falling steadily. This year, it has lost over 20% of its value. Long story short, Samsung needs to get its act together. It is one of the biggest tech and electronics companies in the world. But in South Korea, it's much more than a company. Samsung is what they call a chaebol. What's a chaebol? It's a term for large South Korean conglomerates, usually controlled by a single family. These chaebols dominate the country's economy. They hold outsized wealth, and they're also among the biggest employers. Companies like LG and Hyundai, they're all part of this club. But Samsung is by far the biggest of them all. It accounts for around 15% of South Korea's economy, this one company. So Samsung is critical for the country and for its economic stability. But it has been going through a rough patch. Its financial results have failed to impress investors. There have been protests. Workers have gone on strike, first in South Korea and then recently in India as well, demanding better pay and working conditions. Last month, Samsung also announced sweeping layoffs, impacting up to 30% of their workers overseas. The thing is, this company is struggling with AI, the biggest tech breakthrough in recent history. And the company is also promising to course correct, to overhaul its setup. But it won't be easy because market demand is also slowing down. Big tech is becoming more cautious with their AI investments. Their previous bets are yet to pay off. They've already spent billions of dollars on AI. Now they'll have to tread with caution. While the technology does hold promise, the timeline for the returns is hard to predict. So tech giants are expected to go slower or to stagger their investments. And that's bad news for companies like Samsung because less investment means less demand for Samsung chips. You could say it's the perfect storm for them. It has fallen behind competition and new business is shrinking. Samsung needs to course correct urgently. Its future may depend on it. A strange war is sneaking up on us, a sneaker war, where the usual frontrunner, Nike, seems to be on the back foot. The giant has witnessed its biggest drop in sales since the pandemic. In the latest quarter, Nike's revenue fell by 10% and profits fell by 28% from a year ago. Meanwhile, Nike's rivals, Adidas and Asics, are enjoying boosted sales. And sneaker upstarts are grabbing more market share. Why? Because in this battle for the $84 billion sneaker market, innovation is key. Here's a report.
Maybe George Orwell had a point. 1984 was a tough year, especially for Nike, the US athletic footwear company. Nike's profits were down. Its growth had stalled. Unsold inventory was backing up. So in 1985, Nike birthed a revolution. It released the Air Jordan 1 after a deal with the basketball legend Michael Jordan. Back in 1985, a pair of Jordans was priced at about $65, and Nike expected to sell 100,000 pairs in the first year. Instead, it sold 1.5 million in the first 6 weeks. Today, Air Jordan, which has dozens of models, is considered the holy grail of sneakers. It has influenced people, pop culture, and businesses everywhere, helping make Nike the world's largest sportswear company. Everyone wants a pair of Jordans, and Nike has been happy to oblige. But over time, this has become a problem for the company. It has become too easy to score a pair of Air Jordan 1s. Not only those, but also Air Force One and Dunk. These are the three largest multi-billion-dollar footwear franchises in industry history. Nike oversold them and diluted their limited edition sway. And this has hit the sneaker giant's finances. Traffic is declining across Nike-owned stores and websites. There is an inventory backlog. Despite higher promotions, sales are down. In the latest quarter, Nike witnessed its biggest drop since the pandemic. Revenue fell by 10%, and profits fell by 28% from a year ago. This has unnerved investors. This month, Nike executives warned that its sales could fall another 10% in the current quarter. So the company declined to provide a forecast for the next fiscal year ending in May 2025 and postponed the investors' meeting. What are they waiting for? Actually, the correct question is, who are they waiting for? Elliott Hill. Nike is replacing their current CEO, John Donahoe, with their former CEO, Hill. And he will have one job, to make Nike cool again. Which is going to be tough. It won't be as simple as regaining the air of exclusivity for their Air Jordans, because the company is already on it. Nike is reducing the release of Jordans by 35% this year. And this is not 1984. This time, the landscape is different. The sneaker market is booming. It stands at a whopping $84 billion globally, and it's expected to grow at about 5% annually. Because sneakerheads are fashion-forward customers. They already have shoes. They're looking for something more. Nike is tumbling in this area. It's failing to innovate. And upstarts are grabbing the market share, like Decker's Hoka and the Roger Federer-backed On. Plus, while Nike does little to drive demand, other big names are taking innovation and running with it. New Balance has 990. Asics has Gel Cayano, and of course, Adidas, Nike's biggest competitor, has the Samba and Gazelle. While Nike is in a slump, Adidas is charging like a gazelle towards boosted sales, with expected third quarter revenues to increase by 10% from a year ago. Now that's reason enough to Samba. Of course, not for Nike though, which doesn't have its next groundbreaking product innovation yet. And until it does, the sneaker giant will remain on the back foot.
We live in a digital age. Our lives ruled by our phones, our days shaped by the apps we used. But behind every app download, there is a gatekeeper, one that wields immense power. In most cases, it's Google and its Android App Store. We know it as the Google Play Store. You go on it, you download apps, you use those apps, which sounds simple enough, almost like a digital marketplace. But is it a fair market? Or is Google rigging things in its favor? A new trial has revealed the answer. The case, in fact, began in the year 2020. Epic Games filed an antitrust lawsuit against Google. The charge was quite simple. Google was stifling competition. That was the accusation. Epic Games accused Google of monopolizing how consumers access apps. The case dragged on. Last year, a jury ruled in favor of Epic Games. It was a big win. And today, that win became bigger. A judge has ordered Google to open up its Play Store. Competition must be allowed. That's what the ruling says. So basically, Google must overhaul its business. This goes into effect from the 1st of November. Of course, Google has time. It can appeal against the verdict. It can also get this order paused for the time being. But the ruling itself is quite significant. And to understand why, let's go back to where it all began. In the year 2008, Google launched the Android operating system. It promised to be an open source platform. Android's open nature was appealing. It found a lot of takers, and Google ended up dominating the mobile market. Right now, 70% of the world's smartphones run on Android, 70%. It's a huge market share. Now, Android is open source, yes, but every Android phone comes with this, the Google Play Store. It is the primary source of apps, and it's anything but open. Google calls the shots here. To be on the Play Store, you must play by Google's rules. The biggest red flag is the commission fee. You see, you download an app, you spend money on it when you buy an app, you make in-app purchases. You assume that this money goes to the developers, the people who made the apps that you buy. But here's the twist. While the developers do get some money, Google takes a cut, a 30% cut. Most developers believe that this is excessive, and Google, in fact, agrees. In an internal report, they estimated that apps overpaid Google almost $1.5 billion every year, $1.5 billion. That's a lot of money, but apps do not really have a choice. Yes, there are alternative app stores, but Google does not allow them to run. Take the Samsung Galaxy Store, for example. It's another Android app store. Google did not like it. It tried to kill it multiple times. Samsung resisted. It's a big company, but other companies were not as big as Samsung. They could not stand up to the big bully. So the result is what we have now, an illegal monopoly. Google calls the shots. You must abide by its terms. If you don't, you're out. It's as simple as that. And Google has gone to great lengths to maintain this. It has signed deals with phone makers. For example, OnePlus. Google offers them incentives to prevent pre-downloading of other app stores. It also courts top apps like Netflix and Spotify. Spotify does not even pay the Play Store fees. Why? Because of a secret deal. So you get the gist here. This is how Google keeps competition away and stays on top of the game. This new court ruling aims to change that. It says Google must open up Android. It must allow third-party app stores. But don't expect it to happen immediately. Google will most likely appeal this order. Nonetheless, it's a good start, a sign that Google's dominance is being challenged. And while this ruling does give app developers a fighting chance, regulatory intervention is the only way to level the playing field. Our last story tonight is about the eternal question: what is art? Artists, philosophers, scientists, they've all come up with different answers. But I'll let you in on a secret. No one knows, not even art museums. Recently, a Dutch museum picked artwork out of the trash bin because someone threw it away after confusing art with actual rubbish. And this is not an isolated case. Legendary works of art have been thrown in garbage bins, scribbled on, and even eaten. Here's a report.
That looks like trash. How many times have you looked at a piece of art and said that to yourself? If you're no art connoisseur, then this is a thought that must be a frequent intrusion. But fear not, because you aren't alone. Recently, a Dutch museum literally picked artwork out of a dustbin because a staff member thought that the display was actually rubbish and chucked it in the trash can. This is what the artwork looks like: 2 empty beer cans. If you look closely, these dented cans have been meticulously hand-painted. It's a job so well done that they resemble real cans. This artwork is called All the Good Times We Spent Together and was created by French artist Alexandre Lavey. And the cans were displayed inside the museum's lift as if left behind by construction workers. That was the concept, and it worked so well that one of the workers in the museum thought they were leftovers from lazy visitors and threw them in the bin. When the curator realized that the art was missing, bins were emptied out and the cans were discovered. As funny as this sounds, it's not a rare occurrence. Modern art has often confused the eye of its beholders. For instance, last year a visitor ate the famous banana taped to a wall. This viral artwork is worth $120,000. In 2016, a woman filled in a crossword puzzle at a gallery. It was actually a 1965 piece by Arthur Kopke. It's worth more than $90,000. In 2011, a German cleaner mopped up a smudge on the floor. This too was art. It was an installation by Martin Kippenberger and valued at more than $900,000. If you think this is bizarre, know that sometimes even iconic pieces of art have literally been fetched out of the trash. In 2019, a gardener at an Italian museum discovered a bag of trash. When he looked inside, he found Gustav Klint's Portrait of a Lady. This iconic painting was presumed missing for decades, and today it's worth about $66 million. In 1889, after legendary artist Vincent van Gogh cut off his ear, he visited a doctor. As a thank you to him, 2 weeks later, Van Gogh presented him with this gift: a portrait. The doctor's mother thought it was so bad that she used it to patch a hole in her chicken coop. For decades, this painting collected dust in the doctor's backyard trash pile. Today, it's worth over $150 million. So it's really the ultimate question: to be or not to be an art trasher. After all, when it comes to art, there's a fine line between trash and treasure.
Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Heavy rains lead to rare flooding in the Sahara Desert in Morocco. Bright red and green northern lights illuminate the skies over northern Finland, and drones deliver food to visitors on the Great Wall of China. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1932, the Indian Air Force was established. It was set up as an auxiliary unit of the British military. Until 1950, it was called the Royal Indian Air Force. But once India became a republic, the royal prefix was dropped. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Firstpost decodes the U.S. election, explains how America chooses its president. Your primer on the race to the White House. Everything you need to know about how America votes and its global implications. U.S. Election Explained. Every Monday and Thursday only on Firstpost.